This series of videos explains the Frontex method for creating and documenting an effective corporate governance system. This first video presents the big picture, the set of elements you need in a corporate governance system, what they are and how they fit together. This design follows the best practice guidelines in ISO 37000, Governance of Organizations. Your system has to meet two types of objective. First, of course, is good governance. Your stakeholders need to be confident that your organization will achieve its objectives, and you can prove that you do everything you should to meet your compliance obligations. Second is the practical challenge of documenting your system. You have to be able to prove that your people have the information they need to do their work safely, legally, and efficiently. And you have to do it without burying your organization in paperwork. Traditional documentation, a collection of separate documents, doesn't work well for this. There are too many people involved and things change too quickly. Inevitably, your documents end up inconsistent and out of date. Your governance system documentation divides into three sections. 1. Information about your organization itself, what it is, what it aims to achieve, and how it's governed. 2. Your management system, specifying how your managers should design and supervise the activities for which they are accountable. And 3. The information provided to your frontline personnel to ensure that your operational activities are carried out correctly. Section 1 has three elements: the definition of the organization itself, a formal description of the governing body, and the register of policies. In element 1, you define the organization. This is the foundation of your governance system. It establishes the scope and context of your legal and ISO compliance obligations, and as a practical matter, it defines terminology that will be used throughout your documentation, such as the names of your divisions and business units. Element 2 documents the governing body, the board of directors, management committee, or whatever name you use for the group of people with ultimate responsibility for your organization. Explain how the group operates, any committees it uses, and the development and succession plans that ensure its continuing competence and effectiveness. And provide the statement of governance expectations. These define what it means to say that your organization is well governed. The fundamental purpose of the governance system is to meet these expectations. Element 3 is the register of policies. There should never be any doubt about which policies are in effect and which versions were in effect at any point in the past. This can be a legal issue in the event of an accident. And you have to be able to prove that your policies were communicated to the people who need to know about them. Section 2 defines your management system. It contains standards and guidelines for your managers to govern the procedures and activities for which they are accountable. This is where you do the creative thinking about how to meet your governance expectations and ensure you have a single, consistent approach to meeting all your compliance requirements. Element 4 is your register of management standards. These are the standards such as ISO 9001 that your organization chooses to comply with or must comply with for contractual or commercial reasons. Each entry in the register will explain how you meet the standard in the form of references to the relevant policies and procedures and guidelines for your managers to use when designing and supervising their own activities. If you're seeking ISO certification, this is the starting point for the audit. Element 5 is the register of compliance requirements. These are your legal obligations, things you must do as a matter of law. Add an entry for each statute and regulation relevant to your activities, mapped to the content that proves you do everything you should to meet them. This must be meticulous, because it's your first line of defense against the risk of prosecution for compliance failure. Element 6 is the knowledge map. This is simply an explanation of where your organization stores its records and data, not from an IT point of view, but as a management explanation of what information lives where and who's responsible for it. Throughout your documentation, there will be references to records and data. Every management standard and compliance requirement calls for some type of record keeping, and every procedure uses and creates data. The purpose of the knowledge map is to ensure a common understanding of these references. The final element in this section contains the procedures for the governance system itself. These are the procedures for creating, maintaining, and using the elements of your management system, designed to ensure that you're asking the right questions of your organization and that your governance activities are effective and reliable. The third section of your governance system contains the information that specifies how your organization's productive activities are carried out. This content must be designed to ensure compliance with your policies, management standards, and legal requirements, and it must be delivered as briefly, simply, and clearly as possible. Induction, training, and employee communication are expensive and error-prone, often complicated by language and literacy issues. The effectiveness of your governance system relies on the effectiveness of your communications. Every element of your governance system has to be communicated to someone. But no matter how many sources you have, the information delivered to your personnel must form a single, coherent, consistent body of knowledge. Use the communication and awareness element to define how you do this, to specify what information must be communicated to whom, how it should be communicated, and how you create the records to prove that your people have all the information they need to do their required work safely, legally, and effectively. Element 9 of your governance system defines your procedures, the activities carried out to deliver your organization's intended outcomes. For governance purposes, you need to be able to prove that your procedures are designed to comply with your policies, standards, and legal requirements. You need to be able to show that this content is managed as a single integrated body of knowledge with no gaps or overlaps and with clearly defined boundaries and accountabilities. Work instructions and SOPs explain the detail of the tasks your people carry out. The aim is to ensure that they are carried out in the best available way, automatically in compliance with all relevant policies, standards, and legal requirements. A key value of a well-designed governance system is that your work instructions can be very short and simple because the management issues have already been dealt with. For some purposes, it is better to use videos than text, easier for your end users, and you avoid literacy and language issues. The final element of your system is the mechanism for feedback and improvement. Every activity can give rise to corrective actions, and there are always opportunities for improvement. You may have legal obligations to report some types of incident and non-conformance, or to provide your employees with a way to provide feedback on safety issues. And every ISO management standard requires a continuous improvement process. Use this element to document how these issues are identified, recorded, and actioned. This cycle is fundamental to your organization's sustainability. The 11 elements we've summarized here fit together to create the body of knowledge you need for an effective corporate governance system. How much effort you need for each of them will depend on the nature and size of your organization, its state of development, and the kinds of problems you're facing. But in all cases, simplicity and brevity are key. If it's not short and simple, your system won't work. The practical task is to create a single source of truth that everyone can work from, specifying how you want your organization to function. Each of the elements covered here is explained in detail in a subsequent video. See the description below for links, or subscribe to be notified for new ones. So, how to start? In outline, here's what your project might look like. Step 1. Set up a content management structure with placeholders for each of the required elements. If you use Frontex, this is provided for you. Step 2. Review your existing documentation to see what you have and what state it's in. If your organization has been going for more than 10 years or so, it's likely 2/3 of it will be obsolete or redundant. Step 3. Map your existing content to the required elements. Don't worry about detail at this point. The aim is just to see what you have and where it belongs. Step 4 is the gap analysis. Assess the state of each element. What content do you have, if any? Is it usable? Where are the gaps? What are the risks? Step 5. Work through the elements to fill gaps and bring the content up to standard. Do element 1 first because that's the foundation. After that, work in order of risk or urgency. Step 6. And finally, and continually, review the system with stakeholders. Are they satisfied? The Frontex team is here to help with any or all of these steps. Call us now.